Hello, everyone. Welcome to Confluence of Hearts, a global summit on true self, brave connections, and a love-led world. This summit brings together over 20 trailblazing speakers, including renowned authors, visionary leaders, and pioneering clinicians in a transformative 5-day event. I'm your host, Dr. Mavis Tsai, a research scientist at the University of Washington and founder of the nonprofit organization Awareness, Courage, and Love Global Project. Together, we'll explore cutting-edge insights on reconnecting with our true selves and our fellow humans, dismantling antiquated societal structures, harnessing our passions and gifts, and co-creating a thriving future for generations to come by contributing our highest selves to the world. I'm really thrilled to be speaking with Paul Merriman today. Paul is a nationally recognized authority on mutual funds, index investing, and asset allocation. After retiring in 2012 from Merriman Wealth Management, which he founded in 1983, Paul created the Merriman Financial Education Foundation. His foundation is dedicated to providing do-it-yourself investors of all ages with free information and tools to make better investment decisions. Paul is the author of 8 books, including We're Talking Millions, 12 Simple Ways to Supercharge Your Retirement. He writes a regular column for MarketWatch, a Dow Jones investment company, and produces a multi-award-winning weekly podcast, Sound Investing. He is the 2021 recipient of the American Association of Individual Investors James Clunan Award for Excellence in Investment Education. Western Washington University has established the Merriman Financial Literacy Program, a program dedicated to making all Western graduates financially literate. At his website, paulmerriman.com, he provides an abundance of free books and over 700 podcasts, videos, and articles. Paul's profound commitment to spreading financial literacy goes beyond mere numbers and investment strategies. Through his tireless efforts to educate individuals on securing their finances, his work illuminates how financial wisdom can serve as a cornerstone for living a fulfilled, passion-driven life. With a heart as vast as his expertise, Paul emerges as a guiding light of knowledge and compassion, steering countless individuals toward a brighter, more secure future. The title of his interview is Balancing Hope and Reason, the Lifetime Path to Successful Investing. Paul, just so happy that you're here with me today.
Yeah, Mavis, it's wonderful. You know, it is amazing how random life is, and how the chance meeting that we had many decades ago has come back to hopefully change the lives of other folks. It's wonderful, and thank you for it.
I want to let the audience know how I met you. So I had just gotten out of graduate school, and my parents had really taught me about the importance of financial literacy and saving for a bright future. And so I was checking out investment advisors. I wasn't very well off, but I was saving and I was starting to make money out of graduate school. And so I had 3 financial, maybe even 5 financial advisors I was going to check out. And I went to a talk that you gave. You said 2 things that made me think, this is my man. And I didn't even bother checking out the other financial advisors. You said that you lost sleep at night because you cared so much about your clients' money and making sure that they were going to do well by you. And the second thing you said is that you were adopting a little girl from China. As people know, I'm Chinese. And the idea that you wanted to give back by adopting a little girl from China, that was it. It's like, yeah, I'm going with you. And it was such a wise decision.
Or lucky, maybe, yeah.
Wise and lucky.
Good.
So tell me how you became the man that you are, because I really think you have this incredible balance of being driven by both heart and mind. How did you bond the two? How did you get to be so financially savvy,
Mm.
but to be so heartful about it?
Well, I found the topic of investing and money very interesting early on in my life. It's probably too simple to say this, but I had somebody in my life that didn't particularly care for me, and the one thing that he never understood was money, and it seemed so right to become an expert in that particular topic. And I had another person in my life who was so special to me that said, whoever you meet in life, you treat them with kindness and respect. And learning about money and learning about respecting others, they just kind of went together. And the fact is, Mavis, is that a lot of people don't like to talk about their money. They feel it's a dirty subject, but it is in every single part of our life at some level. And I really believe that if there is a place that creating peace of mind would be really great, would be around financial topics and understanding. And I run into a lot of people who just immediately are not interested, do not want to make any of those decisions. But I have some tricks I can use, I think, to help them think again, because it is such an important part of our lives.
You're absolutely right that it's in every part of our lives, and most people don't like to talk about it. When I was starting my career, I was seeing clients and just reading a lot of books. And there was a book entitled The Last Taboo in
Mm.
Therapy.
Hmm.
What do you think it was?
Yeah,
It was talking
money and
about money.
family.
It was talking
Yeah,
about money.
yeah.
Yeah. So what do you want our audience to know? I think there are probably a lot of people in this audience focused on heart and soul and spirit, and probably don't
Yeah.
want to talk much about money. So
Well, those people actually are typically the kind that want to do something good for others. And I got to say that there is a real payoff for having more than you might have had you not put a little work into this process. Because my wife and I are able to do things for others because we have saved diligently and prudently. And the other part is, I think that so much of the challenge for people is they think there's something complex about it. And we work hard. I mean, we work harder at this than anything to show people how dirt simple investing can be, so that it's kind of in your life and you have to think about it for a little bit. And then you get by that understanding of why it's not important to think about it every day, but get it set up on day one for the rest of your life and go about your business. It doesn't have to rule your life, but it can ruin your life if you don't take the right early steps. And again, they're simple. That in that book about, we're talking millions. These are 12 simple steps anybody can understand, and literally each one worth a million. That is not an idle comment. History has proven that, and we just want people to understand that basic history, and then not make it the focus of their life. There are more important things to do than to sit around and worry about money, but we
can
can
you
help you get there. I
can
hope.
you can you take us through a few of those steps, please?
Sure, sure. I think, and this is where this combination of thinking and feeling, I think, is important. Um, People feel a lot of things about money and what it represents. I want to help them focus on the part that has to do about the thinking part of money. And we could say that maybe the most important part of investing is to simply know the math of investing. If people understood the implication of saving a few dollars a month, and then you put that together with investing in something that historically, I mean, we can't know the past. Nobody knows the past. No investment advisor knows the future. We can know the past, but we can't know the future. And so we try to be really knowledgeable about the past. But if we just got average returns, that money growing on money over time can be tax free. There's one of the 12 right there. You can invest money so that it grows tax free. That's a really big deal. And a lot of people are scared to death of the stock market. Probably the biggest decision you're going to make as an investor, particularly a young investor, is whether to trust the bond market that is, can be totally safe, at least in the mind of the investor, or whether we're going to trust the stock market. Now, we want you to trust it in a very special way, but if we can get you to trust it, here's what we know. We know $100 invested in bonds 96 years ago is today worth about $12,000. We know $100 invested in what we call the S&P 500 large companies, high quality companies generally, is worth about $1 million. Now
Wow.
that is not a small
12,000
difference.
versus $1 million.
And yes, and
Wait,
if
how
by
many
the way,
million how many million did you say?
well, that's $100 to about 1
1
million.
million.
But there are other kinds of stocks that are a little more risky that would today be worth 14 million plus since 1928. So, once you know that, then you might ask, well, why don't people put their money in the stock market? Well, because it goes up and down on a daily basis. And when it's going down, people can feel like they're going broke. They're going to run out of money. It's going to disappear, just like you went to Las Vegas and you put everything on red. The reality is the very worst 40-year period in the stock market was about a 9% compound rate of return. The best was 12.5. Now that means that we're talking about the long term, not the short term. Bonds are better for a day. Bonds are better for a week, maybe even a year or two. But stocks are the best. If you do it right, by the way, got to do it right. Can't be speculating. You can't be gambling. You need to invest. In fact, I want people to invest like the multimillionaires invest, and that is to be broadly diversified. Another one of the 12 is to be broadly diversified. And if you're going to buy a mutual fund, then buying an index fund, which is simply a fund that owns all of the companies inside a certain group, like large growth companies. You could just buy the index fund. And that fund, because it's an index fund, has a very, very low expense. You may make an extra half, you may make an extra 1% a year because you have that fund with a very low expense. I mean, these are all dirt simple decisions, Mavis, and not hard to make, because when I teach high school classes and I give people a choice, would you rather buy a mutual fund that has a load and you have to give some of your money to somebody else and it's going to grow in their pocket for the rest of your life rather than yours? Or would you rather buy a mutual fund that has no commission? What would the implications of that be over a lifetime? Well, it's $1 million decision, as it turns out, and an easy one, because everybody agrees with the idea that you don't want to pay a commission to somebody if you can make an intelligent decision to buy the right kind of mutual fund. And one of the challenges that people have is the people they go to oftentimes want you to buy the expensive fund instead of the cheaper fund. And that means they make more money. And the whole idea of what we're teaching is so that you do the best that you can. I don't mean you ask people to work for nothing, but to the extent that there's a choice and you got two gas stations on two corners and one is 10 cents a gallon cheaper, people are going to, especially engineers and people who like to count things, people are going to gravitate to the one that has the lowest price. Then the only question, and here's a killer, and then I'll stop babbling here.
No,
But
you're not babbling. Yeah.
here's what we know, that the mutual funds that are actively managed at higher expenses, with higher taxes, with less diversification, only 1 in 10 or 20 actively managed mutual funds can beat the index fund, which means I don't have to know anything about the companies. The index fund owns all the companies. And I got more diversification, which means lower risk, lower expenses, which means more in my pocket, and less in taxes, everything to the best interest of the investor. And that's what we're trying to teach.
What about socially conscious index funds?
They're great.
They're great.
They're great, but you have the same choices there. You have the choice of an actively managed fund, or Vanguard, for example, has basically an index fund with very, very low expenses and very fine returns. And we have to keep in mind, we have no idea what the future is going to bring in the economy, in the stock market, in our politics. Things can turn out different than we might personally want. But what I want to make sure is, if you want to be in socially responsible ESG funds, you want to make sure that you pay attention to all those same decisions around expenses and diversification.
So out of the 12 simple ways to supercharge your retirement, which do you think, you may have already answered this, which is the best?
Well, I think a lot of people would say just the act of saving. And I would agree with that it is most important in terms of you starting to build the foundation of future wealth. One of the things that people don't get is, for the first 10, maybe even 20 years, the real return of your portfolio will be the money that you put in there, because you've taken it out of your life. And by the way, we're not saying that you shouldn't spend it. We're saying you should spend it later. It's still to be spent, or to help others, however we want to apply that. But the reality is, the thing that has the biggest impact is that decision between the fixed income, the bonds, and the stocks. And let me just give you a number. For every 0.5% that you can increase the return, given a modest annual contribution, should make you, every 0.5% should make you an additional $1 million over your lifetime. Now, I want to make sure that people understand how I measure that $1 million. I measure it by how much you paid yourself out of that account in retirement, because that's part of the return. And then there's what you left to others when you passed on. Those are the two things we have to add together to see how much you really made on your investments. And what we know is, when you add those two together, every 0.5% generates $1 million to $1.5 million more money in your retirement, or you leave to others, depending how frugal you want to be. And so when I talk about a bond making 5% and a stock or stock index making 10%, as it has since 1928, that's 5%. That's 10 10 0.5% advantages, which means it literally is going to add over $10 million to create the that 0.5%, that
Yeah,
extra 0.5%.
that's mind-boggling. So why did you leave your, I guess it was a for-profit company to become a nonprofit, to start a nonprofit company?
Yeah. Well, there were a bunch of forces. I had the good fortune, here again, a lucky relationship turned into me doing a special for PBS for a pledge week nationally. And that gave me a chance to teach millions of people, which I had never had before. And I also love teaching. You mentioned about my concern about making money for people and doing the right thing. And I've always said that my favorite 2 days of the week were Saturday and Sunday because the market wasn't open. You know, it didn't help people, but it also didn't hurt people. So I could sleep better on weekends than I could during the week. But I finally came to the point, I realized that what I really love doing, because I built the company by teaching and showing people how to do everything on their own. And if they didn't want to do it on their own, we were willing to do that for the investor at what we thought was a fair price. And so now, for the last 10 plus years, I have been purely a teacher. I don't have to worry the same way at night as I used to. It's interesting because I am just a teacher and I don't give personal advice, but I do everything that I know to show people how to do it on their own. And and that's all I can do, particularly at 80 years of age. I know my years are numbered. And the other thing, Mavis, is I used to have, when I was in the business, we had about 2,000 plus families that we work for. Now I work for thousands and thousands of families. I don't know them like I knew you and others that we worked for, but but my my intention is to change their financial future and to do it in a way that they have greater peace of mind. And some will and some won't. And by the way, if you don't find peace of mind doing it yourself, get yourself an investment advisor who knows the right things to do.
Yeah, that was my next question is, when does someone decide, oh, should I just do it myself or should I hire a financial advisor?
Well, I think it is about whether you will tend to the discipline to do it or not. And if you won't, then I think that you need to have the person who can maintain the discipline.
Okay, what does
It
this
is,
discipline involve, Paul?
yeah, there is. And the discipline, by the way, we have three of the books that we recently wrote on our website. One of them is just about the emotional side of investing. I can tell you step by step the things you should do physically to make your money go to work for you. But everybody that I've ever known that's been around this business very long understands that the biggest enemy is the face we see in the mirror in the morning. And that's because that person that we're looking at there has a hard time with a lot of the biases. Daniel Kahneman, I think, had 48 biases in his book, Thinking Fast and Slow. And many of those biases are standing in the way of people's ability to be successful as an investor. And if you can't overcome those biases, let somebody who knows how to do it do it. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody out there offering to do it for you would be my choice, because I want that advisor to believe the same thing that I do about what works and what doesn't work in Wall Street and investing.
What
So,
are some of these biases that don't work for people?
well, some people are overconfident. Some people think they know more than they know. I can I can tell you that nobody knows the future of the stock market. And yet people every day read articles, advertisements, watch it on CNBC, and they believe that these people actually know more than more about what's going to happen, or that they actually do know what's going to happen. And that I'm smart enough to pick which one of those gurus is going to be the real winner. Well, how would I know which one of those gurus? I know that lots of very famous, loud people who yell and scream on TV have terrible track records. We know that. They're tracked and they don't do well, but they entertain well, and they give people a feeling of confidence that they can beat the market. There's so much money to be made simply being the market. You don't have to beat the market to make good money. You just need to be the market. And that confidence gets them in trouble. Other people, I just talked to my barber about a week ago, asked him, he's a young guy. I asked him how much money he's got in his IRA and what he's going to invest in. Well, he's not going to invest in the stock market. Why? Because he doesn't want to lose money. A lot of people are risk averse, and also they have they don't want to have regrets. They don't want to face the reality that I'm a loser because I put money into something and then it went down. Well, when we think long term, as we should, about investing, then all that comes into clear focus, that we shouldn't be looking at it on a short-term basis. That's really hard for a lot of people to do. So a good advisor, they are not being paid to tell you a great asset allocation. They're being paid to keep you in that asset allocation, that combination of stocks and bonds that might be appropriate for you, and to keep you from jumping ship. And because you got to stay the course. It works if you stay the course. It does not work for people when they jump in and out of the market. And I think it's
So,
fair also, Mavis, to add, a lot of people just don't want to fool with it. Now, I'm going to bare my soul on this one, but this is the truth. I don't manage my own money. I have an advisor who manages it. Why? One, because I don't want to focus on my money. It is the last thing that I want to focus on. And I don't mind paying somebody to do it for me. That's number one. Number two, I also struggle with fear of loss. And so I would be tempted. I had somebody call me this morning, I think it was, about, well, what happens if this all this artificial intelligence causes this and this bad thing to happen? I said, look, a buy and holder is supposed to stay the course. I could understand why somebody may be afraid, whether it's a political decision people are making or warfare, whatever it is that's going on in the world. You got to be able just to get rid of all of that and make the commitment to the long term to a portfolio that may or may not do what you want. There is also, and this is so important, Mavis, there's so much luck in this process, randomness. And I really think what is here today, I'm here because of a random meeting with you many, many years ago. You attended a random presentation. You could have attended somebody else's presentation that you loved the night before you came to mine, and you'd be somewhere else in the world right now. And so the reality is that if you happen to invest starting in 1975 until 1999, the market grew, the S&P 500, at 17.2% a year. That is an amazing return. That is more than twice the amount of money that you would have made at 10% because of compounding. On the other hand, after having seen that amazing 25-year track record, that people think they were really smart for having been in the market. Well, it was a random event. They were probably in the markets when they were born. But if you started in 2000 through the end of 2023, it's a 7% compound rate of return. So how are we going to be lucky or unlucky when we're born? We're going to find out and not even realize that it's all about luck or good or bad luck, but there's a lot of that in the process. But you got to be there to take advantage of that good luck, of course, when it happens.
I guess 7% compounded isn't that bad either, but yeah,
Every
compared
10
to,
years, every
yeah,
10 years, it
yeah.
doubles.
So Paul, you've been involved in the investment business for almost 60 years. And is there any single investment that's good for all investors?
Oh, yeah, there is one. There wasn't one when I came into the industry. There wasn't one when we met. But the investment that has been built, there are three investments that have changed the world in terms of what's to the good for the good interest of investors. The first one started in the 1920s, the mutual fund itself. It allowed a person with $1,000 to be treated like a multimillionaire. That was golden. Then you have to go all the way to 1976 before you have something that really, really changed this business. And that was the index fund. We didn't have an index fund when I started in the business, but John Bogle introduced that in 1976. They laughed at him, they scoffed at him, and he built the most amazing mutual fund family, the Vanguard family, off of that commitment to low expenses and broad diversification. And he was laughing at all those active managers saying, we're going to beat you in the end. And he was right. But in 1993, a fund was created that could own index funds inside. Now, not all of them do. So what I'm going to tell you about, there are good ones and there are others that aren't so good. But the good ones are made up of index funds inside a fund of funds, if you will. By the way, you don't have to pay two expenses because you're buying this fund of funds. But inside the target date fund are going to be, for a 21-year-old, almost all or all in equities, just like I would like them to be. And then as you get older, probably by the time you're 40, I'd like to have you in all equities until you're 40. For some people, even 45 or 50, but 40 is, I think, a good average point. You start adding bonds. But you see, a lot of people don't want to take that responsibility. So you buy the mutual fund, the index fund, massive diversification, big companies, small companies, US, international, et cetera. And when you turn 40, they start adding